This has been a total transformation. Life transformation. And it really puts everything in perspective. Love, loss, life, recovery. It's very much a weird way to receive blessings. And I feel really lucky that that's how I see it.
Welcome to another episode of Brain Cancer Diaries. This particular episode features a woman I've known for quite some time, although I haven't really known her that well until last fall. That would be the fall of 2019, when she was diagnosed with the wonderful gift of a brain tumor. I say that sarcastically, obviously, but she had a lot of questions at the time for me, just knowing what I was going through. Obviously, our diagnoses are a little different, but there's a lot of commonalities across different types of brain cancer. So I try to help the best I can. And in turn, of me trying to help her, I found that she's actually helped me quite a bit, just because the amount of grace and courage and positivity that she has put out into the world through this whole process has been quite inspiring to me. Anyway, I hope you enjoy the story.
This is Rudy. He has brain cancer. This series is about much more than that, though. It's about people with all kinds of cancers and serious chronic illnesses who might help him process his own diagnosis. Sometimes it's fun, sometimes it's serious, but hopefully it's always interesting.
The way that it started for me was just having neurological issues, and nobody's brain, no pun intended, jumps to the thought of a brain tumor. I just thought I was having issues due to like a botched foot surgery, and I had drop foot, and I thought maybe I had a pinched nerve, and I was experiencing a lot of neurological slip-ups. Like over the last year, I lost the ability to walk without falling down a lot, and I lost the ability slowly over time to hold a pen. My penmanship was trash.
Okay, so one thing I didn't really mention in the opening of this episode is the fact that the reason why I know Stacie is because she is the wife of a very close and dear friend of mine. In fact, actually, she is now the ex-wife, because as she's having all these different problems for which she's trying to struggle to get a diagnosis for, she was actually going through a divorce. Now, when this diagnosis happened, was actually just after the divorce papers had finalized and everything. So my friend actually wasn't aware of some of this stuff was going on, and it kind of changed the nature of their relationship. Whereas two people kind of separating, kind of in some ways brought them together, not romantically, but as friends.
Because this was all happening at such a tumultuous time, I thought a lot of my symptoms were stress related, like here is this major stressful transformation I'm going through, leaving a husband and a family. I just thought I was having panic attacks or stuff like that.
I had a massive seizure. I fell down a flight of stairs, broke my arm. Thought maybe I had a concussion due to all of that. Went to the hospital to get an MRI, and it turned out I had a mass in my skull. So that's kind of how I found out I had a brain tumor, not expecting to have a brain tumor. Originally, I was told that it was a pediatric tumor, that it was non-cancerous. Pediatric meaning I probably had it since childbirth, and ultimately over 43 years, it finally got to a sizable mass where it was starting to impact my health neurologically. They thought that because it was so deep inside my thalamus, that they weren't going to be able to operate. And so they thought chemical therapy was the best. So I was going to have chemotherapy and radiation.
But just because the marriage was over, they were living in New York near Woodstock at the time. And so Stacie, she moved to go live with her mother in the Boston area. And when you move, you often switch facilities just to make it more convenient. But as it so happens, in Boston, there's actually two of the finest institutions in the country when it comes to dealing with brain tumors. And so the diagnosis kind of shifted a bit at that point.
So when I got to Massachusetts, I was with Dana-Farber. They ran the same biopsy material and decided that it had some qualities like a cancer, but it wasn't. It was still a benign tumor with a mutation. My case was referred to a neurosurgeon at Brigham and Women's.
Okay, so Stacie was formally diagnosed with what's called a ganglioglioma, grade 1. And some people, when they hear the term grade 1, they almost, that's the slowest of the tumors, and they assume, and they hear the words benign, and they think that, oh, everything's fine, everything's great. Well, let me tell you, anyone who's seen some episodes, I've done this in the past with people with benign brain tumors, benign isn't fine. It is still very much can be life-threatening. It can change your life in a great many ways, as you'll see.
She would, through thorough brain mapping, she would be able to devise a plan, like a route to get in so deep to get to the tumor that she would be able to operate. The MRI was the scariest and most fascinating thing. If it wasn't your own brain, you would be riveted by watching it and understanding it. But when it's your own brain, you're like, oh. Really, I had two choices. I had the one doctor who said it was inoperable, that it was too deep within the brain, and that the safest thing to do was to have all this chemical therapy. I'm somebody who barely took an Advil most of her life, so the thought of chemical therapy was scary. I guess I jumped at the chance to have the surgery, and then if the surgery didn't work or worked partially, then there would be chemical therapy.
Here you are, you're coming, just like, oh, I have a brain tumor, that's horrible. And then people are throwing all these other things at you, which are like, a hypothalamus, what? Astrocytoma, gangliodroma, whatever, like all these terms that you probably never even heard before. So.
No, and it's kind of like a blessing and a curse. I have a mother who has stage 4 cancer, and so she's been at Dana-Farber for years, and she was kind of my guide through all of this.
Okay, listen to this next section of what Stacie's talking about, which is a pretty common phenomenon. I know I experienced it myself. And in fact, I'd say I didn't even really get to the other side of it, of really kind of understanding the big picture, until much, much later, probably a good year after my initial surgery.
Went into it singing Bob Marley, everything's gonna be all right, trying to keep a positive attitude, and I woke up, and maybe I was naive or maybe I was insanely hopeful, but like I really didn't think past the surgery. I was naive enough to believe that or I was hopeful enough to believe that she was going to get it all. And the reality and the miracle is she did. She removed 99% of the tumor. Of course, there is the thought that there's residual tissue. And so ultimately, my treatment now is no chemical therapy. It's just monitoring the residual tissue to see if it grows back. But the adverse reaction to all of this was that I woke up paralyzed on my right side.
Remember when I said benign isn't fine? Well, you're about to find out more about that. This was one of Stacie's best options, and it still left her with a good deal of paralysis, on her right side. So it's difficult for her to walk and to use her right arm. So, they like to say that grade 1, and there's also a few different variants and types that they talk about that are the so-called good cancers, which is thus the name of this episode. But so you're about to find out that there's no such thing as a good cancer. They are all horrible in their own ways.
There are no perfect approaches to any of this, as you very well know. A lot of it is trial and error, fingers crossed. Keep your resistance up, keep your hope up, keep your positivity up, and take it one day at a time. So I feel really grateful to have been given this gift, but now this is my new challenge.
Are you right-handed or left-handed?
I'm right-handed.
So, look at you.
There's always some kind of challenge in all of this, and at least I only thought as far as the brain surgery. I didn't think, oh, now I'm gonna wake up with these mobility issues, with delayed speech, with all of these cognitive delays. You just think, oh, I woke up. That was a success. Okay, they removed most of the tumor. That's a success.
I know for me, like you talked about cognitive delays, I have some of that as well, where just like recall is really, my short-term memory is really poor, and even like long-term memory, like I haven't forgotten things, but like it takes me longer to recall certain things.
Yeah. Recalling things is probably my hardest. Not to mention the loss of my mobility. It's positively frustrating to wake up in this body sometimes. And I really didn't think this would be an outcome. But having something like this forces you to reprioritize everything. So I'm at least cognitive enough to know, like, it could have been worse. I try to think of the positives, like, okay, now I get to rebuild my body in a better way. I was mid-40s, totally lax, taking so much for granted, and it helped me realize I got lazy, I got complacent, and now I have to put up a good fight to do everything. Literally relearn how to shower, how to dress myself, and then you find the joys in the little milestones, like I can tie a knot with my left non-dominant hand.
Go ahead. Try it. I'll wait.
It sounds hokey, but there's so much mindful movement in this new life, in this new path we're on. You really have to be mindful of everything you do. The fact that, with each step is wobbly, and now I have to be more conscious. Where do you plant your foot? everything has to be thought out and planned and approached in a certain way. So it's really helped me to slow down and be mindful in my movement.
I mean, in terms of how slow it is, I mean, I know for me, it's like, I mean, I used to be really active. I would, you know, run 10Ks and half marathons and do triathlons. And then like, now like, oh boy, I walked 2 miles around the block. Like, that's a huge achievement for me. I mean, and it took me like a good part of a year to get to that. I mean, it's like, in terms of you, I mean, I'm sure your progress is just as slow, where it's just like baby steps. It's like, oh, today, hey, I can walk easily to the kitchen now, when it was really hard a month ago. It's like,
yeah, it is painfully slow. And like you, I was a very active person, very physical. I love to hike, I love to swim, I taught Pilates, and you know, now I celebrate the fact that I can climb stairs enough that I graduated to the 2nd floor of the house and regained my private bedroom. Now I get to see the upstairs and the downstairs, and it's forced me to slow down and appreciate everything. And as you heal and motivate, then you have to celebrate even the smallest milestone.
the first year is definitely the hardest. It does get better. I mean, I'm about a year and a half in, and I certainly have my tough emotional days, tough physical days. But I mean, when I really put it in perspective, I think about like the first 6 months which you're in after surgery. It's really hard because everything is super slow. I mean, it's like, because you're still retraining your brain to do like the simplest of things, like where to put your foot and things like that. And it does become a little bit more preternatural, but it's still something you got to think about. I mean, and you will think about for a very long time. It's definitely a psychological battle as much of it as it is a physical battle. You want to jump out of your body sometimes and do the other things. It's like, lately I've been having dreams of being able to just jog at a normal pace instead of like my baby pace that I go at. You know,
I dream of swimming a lot and jumping in the ocean and just becoming fluid. And that's the other thing. I really didn't have dreams before. So I'm trying to enjoy every aspect of this new reality, but it's humbling.
Now you might be asking, what's the role of my friend, who is the ex-husband of Stacie, in this equation, and how he feels about all this. You know, it's interesting. It's one of those things where I think when you're diagnosed with something like this, it kind of makes two people who are friends, lovers, spouses, look at everything a little bit differently. It certainly made them forget, I think, probably a lot of the little issues in their relationship. They've been a support system for each other, and in a lot of ways, I mean, Stacie has even told me this, is that she feels that they're better friends now than when at any point in their relationship.
This is life. Life is full of, there's so many things. As you know, being a father and a husband, things happen when you least expect it, and it's how you decide to handle it. And so I look at all of it. Was it untimely? No one expected all these things to happen at once, but I'm kind of glad that it all did. It helped me literally rip the Band-Aid off my complacent, unhappy life and get awakened to a new reality and help me prioritize what's really important, who's really important, and now I look forward to the next steps, the healing, the recovery, and learn to live in a new light. So it's not all bad.
Like, share, and subscribe.